Hey everyone, Miss Salzy coming to you live from the art room. Very exciting day. Are you ready for this? Dun, dun, dun. Put in some exciting music because I have a camera that works on the computer. Yay! All right, I know you all are not quite as excited as I am about this, but the first couple weeks of school were a real struggle not having this ability, so I'm very excited. And so here is the long-awaited one-point perspective video I promised you, but was waiting until I had the appropriate equipment to do this. I now have it. So last week we were talking about how to do one-point perspective names on your folders. And I was showing you this example, which was on the television that you guys were trying to look at through two screens. It wasn't going well, but now I can show you how we did it. So if you look at my letters, we've created 3D looks, although I haven't colored them in because I sort of ran out of time, but we've created 3D letters here by going from lines. And so there was some confusion on this point because some of you made block letters and then drew lines from them, which is a little bit not quite the point of this. So let me show you from start to finish how we can get here. All right, so let me actually start with a new piece of paper. The first thing I had you do on your folder, so pretending that my piece of paper is your folder, whatever color that is for your class, the first thing I had you do was that we drew a horizon line. And a horizon line is what separates the earth from the sky. So if you walk outside and you look at the mountains and where the mountains meet the sky or the ground meets the sky, that is your horizon. So you can kind of think of this as the grass part of your page, and this is the sky part of your page. All right. So on that line, I had you put a dot. Doesn't have to be in the center. In fact, you can get some really neat effects by moving this dot somewhere else on the horizon line, and that changes the perspective. I'm doing it in the center just because I am. It's easy, you can see it. So the next step that I had you do was put letters, your first name, above the horizon line, and your last name below the horizon line. Some of you guys have really long either first or last names. You might have decided to turn your paper from, we call this portrait, when the short side is up and the long side is on the side. Some of you may have decided to do this in landscape mode where your paper, if you can see it, oh, look at all the things I can play with, is long ways instead of short ways. That's fine. However you could fit this on, it was really just an experiment. And if this didn't work out, I don't want you to panic. I wasn't able to get you all the tools that I wanted to last week to make this happen. So this is more just an experiment in fun, all right? So don't panic if yours didn't come out all right. All right, so the next step of that, and I worked ahead because this would just be forever, we're to add some letters. And I asked you to add them on in block. And block means that they're not rounded. Now you can do this with rounded letters, with bubble letters. It's just harder, and I'll show you some examples of that in a minute. All right, the next step, notice that I haven't created any 3D elements to this. This is just the letters in block form. You can also notice that I am really terrible at doing block S's, which is unfortunate because I have 3 of them in my name. The next thing that you're gonna do is take your ruler, and I think you guys can actually see my clear ruler, so I'm going to use it instead of that one, which you can't see through. And here's the trick about this. You're going to run a line from every point back down to this dot, and that's on every letter, because this dot is your perspective point, which is what makes this one-point perspective. So for the letters above, you're going to run from the corner to the dots. All right. Now what gets tricky is for a letter like an M that has multiple junctions, you also need to run lines wherever they meet. And I'm trying to do this accurately because I'm doing it with Sharpie and I can't erase. By the way, I have my letters outlined so that you guys can see it. You do not have to outline your letters like this in a black Sharpie or any color Sharpie if you don't want to. This is strictly so that you can see it because pencil is a little difficult to see on the camera. All right, so I've done it for the M. Now I'm going to do it for the S. So I'm going again to that same point. And there's a little bit of wiggle room in this because I made this dot so large. The smaller the dot, the more sort of accurate this will be. Now this gets a bit tricky. If I were doing this with pencil, I could erase out, but as I'm not doing it with pencil, I'm going to stop, go over the part of the letter and just pretend that that's solid, and then come down this way. All right, it's not really worth doing it for that one, so I'm not going to, but if I come up here, same thing. Now you're going to start getting a lot of lines. It's going to be a little bit confusing. But that's okay. So notice this, I'm going to run through 2 points at once. I may have been a little off on that one, but it'll be close enough to give us the idea. Again, we're not perfectionists. We're striving to learn, and when you learn, sometimes it's not perfect the first couple times, and that's okay. All right, this is probably the easiest one to see. So let's handle the period on my name here. Oh, and that's almost not going to have a side to it. All right. Now, just to show you really quickly, I'm not going to do all the lines, but I'm going to bring them up. So when you have letters below the horizon line, now they need to come up. You see that? And again, you would do it, you know, for this connection point here. I'm going to skip over the solid letter. And I wasn't quite dead center on that dot, so it's a little off. But again, we're just learning. It's fine. There's not too much I need to do on this. I'll do a little bit. Okay. So here's what we have. Now the trick becomes to use these lines to help create the 3D perspective. So let me zero this in so you can really see what I'm doing. All right, take your ruler. And this is why I said it might be helpful when we were talking about this in class to have a clear ruler that you can see through. So I'm going to line this ruler up for the M so that it is flat across this leg and this leg. And I'm going to bring it down. How far down you bring it doesn't really matter. It's just going to create, whether you have fat letters or thin letters, that's what it's going to do, is create the depth. So on that same angle, I'm just going to draw this across. And now I'm going to create the depth for this leg. So I've lined it up. I'm pretty sure that that's about as straight as I can get it. And I'm going to bring it over. And where, oops, this is where having a little wiggle room at the bottom is a problem. Where it meets is where the depth's gonna be. Now, the way that this is angled, you can actually see this side of the leg from this perspective. So we don't have to draw an angle there, but we do see the little point of the M that comes down. So again, I'm gonna find that angle of that M and try to keep it about the same thickness as I've kept it elsewhere and just bring it down. So find the angle, and where it touches, that's where it meets. Now, if I were to color this in, you can start seeing the depth that's created by doing this. These are some wild color choices I've gone with here. I was trying to do what would stand out for you to be able to see it. There, do you see that? And that's how you create 3D perspective using this technique. So if you think about it, if you're standing at this dot, if this is you, you are looking up sort of at the underside of that M, and that's what you see. So now you do that to create all of your angles for your other letters. And so it just takes a little bit of patience. Now, with a letter like the S, where you've got some extra lines running through, towards the bottom, you just kind of ignore those. So let's make sure our angle's right. Come down. Let's make the S a little thicker. And I'm going to angle it there. And then I'm going to create this line. By just sort of bringing this down. And then it has a little bit of depth right there. And then again, we create it here. We're not going to see this side of the S because we're looking up at it, but we're going to see the underside of that top bit. So let's draw it from there to there. Might need to rework that a little bit. And then same thing here. We're going to see something maybe like that. All right, so now, and you're going to have to sort of imagine the angle, take where this line meets that angle of the orange that runs through, that's where we put our depth. Oh, I did it on the wrong side. Whoops. Oopsie, oopsie, oopsie. Ignore that. It's going to come down from here. Mistakes happen. This is why you do things in pencil, not in Sharpie. All right, we'll all live. There are many world religions where they feel that if you create something perfect, you're actually besmirking God. So in the art room, it is perfectly okay if you have something imperfect, because that just proves you are altogether human. There you go. So you can see if we just trace down those lines I've created, that's how you get the 3D. Now, what's the advantage over this way of just sort of imagining what parts you would see? Well, this actually makes it mathematically correct. So if you are using this for, say, design work in the future, you're going to have everything proportionally correct if you really sit down and do this well. And the main key is to have this dot on the horizon line, an actual tiny little dot, and not this huge blob. But again, I wanted you guys to be able to see that so that you knew what I was talking about. All right, so that's how that works. And you just do the same thing on the bottom. I'll just do one line to show you. So you're gonna bring it in, and let's say this is a big S. So I'm just gonna draw that straight across, and then this would get shaded in. And I've had a little too much coffee this afternoon, so my hand is not as steady as it should be. It's funny how when you get older, things that didn't used to affect you suddenly start affecting you. college, I could drink coffee all afternoon and have a super steady hand. All right, so that's how that works. So I hope that makes a lot of sense. Now, some of you, I said we'd talk about some problems. Some of you I know accidentally did some bubble letters. That's okay. Let me show you how this works. It's a little harder because you're gonna have to do some imagination, but you'll be all right. So let's say you did an A. You're kind of gonna have to imagine on your A what the corner is. And so if I swing this ruler around, the point at which it stops on the edge of the A, that's where I'm going to bring it. So if I bring it on this side, and then I'm going to bring it from the leg up, and then you kind of have to do the same thing on the inside of this. So remember, we're not going to see anything on this side because we're standing to the right of this A. So we're only going to see things that are on this side of the A. On the outside, we're not going to see the inside. And likewise, we're not going to see things that are on the outside of this side of the A, but we will see the inside. And so you're going to want to bring this up. Oops. All right. Here's where you have to have a little bit of patience. So what you're going to do, oh, I should have, let me switch colors so that you can better visualize this. All right, is now you're going to have to imagine this a little bit. So you're going to have to echo the shape of the round parts and use that to create the depth. So take the rounds part of the A and as best you can, echo that shape to where it meets the line. All right. And so now you're just kind of colored in. So let me start in the center because it's small. See that? So same thing under here. Sorry, big space and a little marker. Okay. And then if you were doing this at home, you could erase out those other lines because you guys aren't doing this in Sharpie. But I have to sort of keep it. And I might not have gotten that line quite where it needed to go because if I look at this, I think, well, maybe not. It depends. I may have gotten that just a little bit of this, not quite far over enough. And so then you would just sort of bring, I'm gonna go big shade there. All right, that should give you the idea of how to do that. And if you've got something completely round like an O, let's see if I can do it a little better this time. Let's go from there to there. And then so you would echo this shape on here. And then we might have to bring that down. So you can see why I told you going square is easier because it lets you kind of be very precise with the corners. So you just have to kind of have a lot more imaginary points when it is round. So let's see. There we go. And then of course you would also do this on the inside. So hopefully that has given you guys some ideas of how to do this. Again, don't get too wild about it. I just wanted to use it as an opportunity to teach you a little something about perspective and also to get to use my camera. So that's all for now. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you later. Bye.